is a distinct privilege to be here today, and we have some very special guests. I'm going to truncate my remarks down to just saying it is great to see the team here, see the team back in full stead. Thanks for standing the watch through this little bit uncertain period here from the holidays on. What I'm going to do next is I'm going to introduce our distinguished secretary, the 6th Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. We're in our 16th year as a department. I got to tell you, we have been tremendously led. The Secretary was staunchly advocating for us throughout this shutdown period and all the work that's going on across the nation. It is my distinct privilege to introduce the Honorable Kirstjen Nielsen, 6th Homeland Security Secretary of the United States. Madam Secretary.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Thanks to Admiral Schultz for the introduction. And if I could, I wanted to just start with a round of applause for the Commandant. We are all thrilled and so proud to have him as part of our family. So if we could. And it is such a pleasure to see so many DHS folks. I see TSA over here. We've got all folks from Coasties. DHS is in the house. So cheers to all of you. Thank you for everything you do. Another round of applause for you. So we had a great visit today. The Vice President was briefed on the extraordinary work that you do, including the success of our joint task forces. And we were reminded yet again of the sacrifices that you make each and every day on behalf of our great country. So I want to thank you for your service to our country. As the Commandant said, I want to thank you for your focus, your dedication. Through good and bad, you continue to serve our country with distinction and honor. And as your Secretary, I'm extraordinarily thankful for that. Whether you serve in the Coast Guard, CBP, ICE, TSA, or elsewhere in the DHS family, you are part of one team and one family. And you are on the front lines of securing our homeland and defending our way of life. I can't tell you how proud I am to serve alongside of you, whether you're enforcing the law, interdicting smugglers, conducting life-saving search and rescue operations, assisting with disaster relief efforts, or bringing transnational criminals to justice. And that's probably only the things you did just this morning. Your work in making America safe is recognized by all. Thank you. I understand the Coast Guard Cutter Bear will soon depart for a counter-narcotics patrol in the Eastern Pacific. I want you to know that we will be thinking about you all during this mission, and we're counting on you, as you always do, your best. Every interdiction you make has the potential to save lives and protect our communities from the spread of drugs, crime, and violence. And through the extraordinary work of Joint Task Force East and our other joint task forces, we are enabling such missions to block illicit goods from reaching our country and to track down on nefarious networks that are planning to break our laws. The Department of Homeland Security was established in the shadow of tragedy and born from the rubble of Ground Zero, from the Pentagon and from the wreckage of Flight 93. A great deal has changed since then. We just celebrated 15 years last year. We're on the cusp of celebrating our 16th year. And since we discussed in our briefing today, our adversaries, as you all know, have turned from the way that they used to work into a networked model. They're truly crowdsourcing their violence, their nefarious activities, and so we too must crowdsource our response. Whether it's drugs, terrorism, or human smuggling, we will defeat nefarious networks with our own, and we will counter lawlessness with law and order. You all represent the very best of our DHS family, and I would ask you to do one thing for me today, as I always do when I have the pleasure to speak to you all. Please thank your families on behalf of us for their sacrifices, for when you serve, they do as well. And it's now my very great honor to introduce to you our special guest. Since his earliest days in public life, he has been one of the most vocal supporters of America's frontline defenders. In Congress, he was a powerful advocate for the men and women of our department. As a governor, he led efforts to bring federal, state, and local officials together to make our communities safer. And from the White House, he has been one of the most passionate champions of the work you do each day to secure our borders, our coastlines, and our homeland. I am extraordinarily thankful for his leadership and for his support always of the Department of Homeland Security. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, it is my honor and great privilege to introduce the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you for your great leadership. You all may be seated.
Detail. Hurry, press.
To the Commandant of the Coast Guard, Admiral Schultz, Vice Admiral Bushman, Director Padilla, Director Ayala, and to all of you serving in the uniform of the United States of America at every level, all of you who serve and protect the people of this nation, it is my honor to be here with all of you at Coast Guard Base Portsmouth. Thank you for your service. It is amazing to think, as we reflected earlier today on the work of the Joint Task Force, it's amazing to think of all the different agencies and all the different courageous service that's represented here and the difference that each and every one of you make. Department of Homeland Security, some 240,000 men and women who work each and every day to protect the homeland, to protect American families, protect our cities, and protect the nation against the scourge of drug addiction, the impact of criminal syndicates. So as I begin my remarks today, let me bring a word of gratitude, admiration, and appreciation from your Commander-in-Chief. I bring the thanks of the 45th President of the United States of America, President Donald Trump. The President asked me to be here today to hear the latest on the efforts of the Joint Task Force, but also just to express a word of appreciation to each and every one of you, and to no less extent your families, for the service that you render to the people of this country each and every day. I hope some of you had a chance to see a State of the Union address last night. The President of the United States addressed the nation. He laid out a bold, bipartisan vision and called on the Congress to join the American people, to join each and every one of you, to choose greatness. But it is something I know each and every one of you do every day. The President called for unity in Washington. He asked members of Congress on both sides of the aisle to come together to build new coalitions, forge new solutions, and unlock, in his words, the extraordinary promise of America's future. And as the President said in his State of the Union, and I say with equal conviction, looking out at all of your shining faces and thinking of all that you represent here across this department, across this country, indeed, the state of our union is strong, and it is safer because of the work that all of you do every day. And the American people know it. Give yourselves another round of applause. And we know that your service comes with sacrifice for you and your families. And frankly, your character shines through each and every day, through deployments, through missions that you undertake. And the nation, frankly, saw your character in high relief in recent weeks when the President took a strong stand for border security during the government shutdown that lasted some 35 days. Let me say to each and every one of you, the President and I couldn't be more grateful or couldn't be more proud of all of our federal employees and their families who rose to the challenge, stayed on task, but we are especially grateful to the men and women of the Coast Guard and the Department of Homeland Security. You stood tall, you stood your watch, you did not relent, and you have our thanks for your commitment to your mission and your duty. Thank you all. Thank you for standing your post. And just know this President and I and our entire administration have your back. And even as we speak today, the Congress is working on funding, not only for the Coast Guard, for the Department of Homeland Security, but for other critical agencies of the government. And we're working in good faith to resolve these issues. But I promise each and every one of you, just as you stand and fight every day for the safety and security of the American people, President Donald Trump and I are going to stand and fight to get you what you need to accomplish your mission and keep the American people safe. That's our promise. We recognize, and I just heard in my briefing, your job is more challenging because our border is not secure along the southern border of the United States. A porous border along the United States gives drug traffickers and criminal cartels too many opportunities. And the traffic that the Coast Guard, the traffic that the Joint Task Force interdicts all across the East Coast, through the Gulf of Mexico, and along the southern border of this country is reflective of that reality. Enforcing our laws and protecting the American people is what all of you do best. And I just want to assure you, as evidenced in the President's words last night, as evidenced in the determination that he and our administration has reflected, we're going to continue to fight to get you what you need to accomplish that mission, and we are going to secure our border one way or another. It is impressive to learn, Admiral, about this joint task force and to think about the interagency efforts. It really is remarkable to think about it. Joint Task Force East and West and investigations. Immigration, Customs Enforcement, U.S. Citizenship, Immigration Services, ICE, and of course, let's not forget our great partners in local law enforcement who work with all of our federal agencies every single day. We respect and appreciate them as well. You also work hand in hand with the Department of Defense and our international partners to advance the security and prosperity here at home and, frankly, all across the Western Hemisphere. Just heard a briefing on our investigations division and learned about how we have literally forward deployed to deal with those who would threaten our families and threaten our communities long before they're ever anywhere close to the border of the United States of America. And those international partnerships are vital to our efforts. The work you do every day saves lives. And it's remarkable to think about that, and I hope each and every one of you understand that the American people know it from your Commander-in-Chief on down. The work that each and every one of you does every day stems a tide of narcotics that comes into this country and literally claims the lives of tens of thousands of Americans. We cannot account for the lives that are saved, but we know there are many. We think of the great news yesterday. I was just informed that the Coast Guard cutter Forward, a sister ship of the Bear that I was just on, a home port here in Portsmouth, it literally offloaded more than 15 tons of cocaine that had been seized over the past 2 months during counter-narcotics operations in the Eastern Pacific. Join me in thanking the whole crew of the Forward for a job well done that is saving American lives. The truth of the matter is, none of you in this room have to wonder whether you make a difference, because you do, every single day. And I want to tell you, as I travel all across this country, I hear about the admiration of all of the agencies represented here. I hear the expressions of support, and I expect very recently you heard it as well, from communities and families that reached out to yours, and just took the opportunity to let you know how grateful they are to each and every one of you. And I can assure you that is a reflection of the view of all of the American people. You know, I was on Capitol Hill on September 11, 2001. We didn't even have a Department of Homeland Security then. I'll never forget seeing the smoke rise from the Pentagon. I'll never forget when we traveled to Ground Zero a week later and saw the unspeakable devastation of the evil that had descended there. You, in a very real sense, all the agencies here now under the umbrella of the Department of Homeland Security and the capable leadership of Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen, You're all a part of an American response that keeps our nation safe, that leans into the fight against those who would harm our families, who would seek to profit through narcotics, who would enslave people through human trafficking and the brutality that's represented there, and also who would seek to come into our country with criminal intent or terrorist intent. You make a difference every day. And I want you to know that we all know it, and we're grateful to each and every one of you. And I want to promise you, for all that you do every single day, President Donald Trump and our administration will always have your back. Our record, I hope, speaks for itself. Within a month in office, the President signed an executive order to strengthen the authority of DHS, Coast Guard, and law enforcement at every level to combat transnational criminal organizations and cartels and gangs that threaten the American people and are constantly changing in their methods. Last August, the President signed into law the National Defense Authorization Act, updated the Maritime Drug Law Enforcement Act to make it easier for all of you and those serving on the front lines of law enforcement to bring maritime smugglers to justice. And we're grateful for the support in Congress that made that possible. And of course, since the first day of this administration, President Donald Trump has worked to make the strongest military in the history of the world stronger still. In our first year in office, the President signed into law the largest increase in our national defense since the days of Ronald Reagan, including the largest military pay raise in nearly 10 years. And as the Commandant knows, there was more than $12 billion for the Coast Guard to rebuild your aging fleets and strengthen the vital assets of your mission. So, congratulations to you all. So we've made incredible progress in the last 2 years, but the truth is, as I said before, we recognize that your jobs and all the agencies represented so well here, your jobs are as difficult and dangerous as ever, largely driven by the security and humanitarian crisis along the southern border of the United States. And we do have a crisis on our southern border. It's extraordinary to think that every single day, some 2,000 people attempt to come into this country illegally. And those are just the people that are apprehended by agencies and Border Patrol so well represented here. 2,000 people a day coming in to the United States of America. It's a security crisis. Last year alone, some 10,000 individuals with prior criminal convictions were apprehended attempting to come into the United States of America. But it's also a humanitarian crisis. I don't need to tell all of you with responsibilities along our southern border gathered here in this room that for the first time ever, the majority of people seeking to come into our country illegally are families and unaccompanied minors, putting an enormous burden on our system. And it's a reflection of human traffickers and cartels that I learned today charge upwards to $5,000 per person to entice vulnerable families to take the long and dangerous journey up the peninsula, a journey that for most results in physical and sexual abuse along the way, and for some, even worse. We have cartels and human trafficking organizations, criminal syndicates that take advantage of vulnerable families and take advantage of loopholes in our laws and our porous borders. And as the President of the United States said last night, this is a moral issue. We have a moral duty to secure our border and reform the immigration laws of the United States of America, and we will do it. And the cost you all know is extraordinary. Every day our southern border remains unsecured gives criminal syndicates and drug traffickers and human traffickers another opportunity to threaten our families and harm people on both sides of the border. Men and women of the Coast Guard and DHS know firsthand about these transnational criminal organizations in Mexico and Central America, the drug cartels that fuel their deadly trade They represent one of the greatest national security and public health threats in the history of this country. Drug overdose is now the leading cause of death for adults under 55 years of age. In 2016, across America, 174 people lost their lives to drug overdose every single day. The illicit drug trade not only claims the lives of tens of thousands of Americans, it also strengthens the ability of those criminal syndicates in the world to engage in their heinous activities, from extortion to human trafficking and worse. The challenges and threats that you personally face in the line of duty underscore the reason why we are so determined to give you the resources that you need to secure our border and protect this homeland, and we will do it. President Trump, as he described last night, has sent to Congress a common-sense proposal to end the crisis on our southern border. It's really an all-of-the-above plan. It's a plan that includes humanitarian assistance, more law enforcement personnel, drug detection technology at our ports of entry, closing loopholes that enable child smuggling, and a proposal for a new physical barrier. As the President said last night, a smart steel barrier on our southern border. Walls work, and we need to secure our border, including with a physical barrier, and we will do it one way or another. We're going to secure our border. That's our promise to each and every one of you. And we're going to support each one of you in the efforts that you make on behalf of the American people. In the days ahead, you can be confident that just as each and every one of you step forward to protect this nation every day, to stand up for the American people, we're going to continue to stand with you to give you the resources and the support that you need. So thank you all for coming out today. It's a great honor to meet you. I hope to get a chance to say hello to as many of you as possible in person. It's the greatest honor in my life to serve as your Vice President, and I thank you for coming and spending a few minutes with me today in the midst of all of your duties. So I came here to say we're with you. We're going to stand with you. We're going to continue to fight to give you the resources that you need to protect the homeland and secure our border. But as I said before, I also came here just to say thanks. You know, the good book says, if you owe debts, pay debts. If honor, then honor. If respect, then respect. Let me assure each and every one of you, the American people honor your service. We respect the way you've answered the call for this country. I was sitting down in the mess hall with the Bear just a few minutes ago, and one of those Coast Guardsmen, I looked across at him and I asked him, why did you join the Coast Guard? He'd been in about 12 years. Talked about how he remembered 9/11. He just wanted to do something for his country, to protect his country. And I think what's remarkable about that answer is it's very typical of, I know, how all of you feel. Public service is a calling. Public safety is a calling. It's a calling to a mission, to consider others as more important than yourself, to count your life as less important than the lives of your countrymen. And so I really came here to say thank you. I came here to say thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you for your service. Thank you for what you do to keep the American people safe each and every day. And just know that while you have our thanks, you have our support, I'm also confident that you do have the prayers of millions of Americans. So I'll close with that prayer as well, that no harm will overtake you, no disaster will ever come near you. May He guard you in all your ways as you guard the people of the United States of America. So thank you. God bless you. And God bless America.